You're making these daily mistakes? They're ruining you. Explained right now today, your body is aging faster than it should, and the most terrifying part is that you are the one making it happen. Not because you are reckless, not because you have some rare disease, but because of things you did this morning before you even had your coffee, things you will do again tonight before you go to sleep. Ordinary, invisible, completely accepted routines that are quietly destroying your cells, overloading your organs, and shortening your life one ordinary day at a time. According to the World Health Organization, over 71% of all deaths globally are caused not by infection or accident, but by lifestyle-related chronic diseases. 71%. That means the leading cause of death on this planet is how we choose to live our daily lives. You are not reading the warning signs. You are not connecting your afternoon brain fog, your disrupted sleep, your low-grade anxiety, or your constant fatigue to the small daily choices driving them. You have been told these feelings are normal. They are not. So here is the question. What if everything you thought was just a bad day was actually your body screaming at you in the only language it has? Keep watching. This one changes everything. In this video, you are going to learn 5 specific daily mistakes that are causing documented biological damage inside your body right now. Mistakes most people make every single day without ever realizing the cost. You will learn exactly what happens at the cellular and hormonal level when you do them. You will learn what the science actually says about how fast the damage starts. You will discover the real warning signs your body has been sending you that nobody ever explained. And you will get evidence-based solutions that the research proves actually reverse this damage, not in months, but in days and weeks. Most people never get this information because it lives buried in medical journals, not in a 10-minute appointment. Doctors are trained to treat what is already broken, not to prevent the breaking. Stay until the end because the final point will completely change the way you live your daily life. Here is what is actually happening inside your body right now, and why it is happening faster than you think. Every single cell in your body operates on a biological clock called the circadian rhythm, a roughly 24-hour internal timing system controlled by a region of the brain called the suprachiasmatic nucleus. This master clock does not just regulate when you feel sleepy. It governs your immune function, your hormone secretion, your metabolism, your cardiovascular repair cycles, and even your DNA repair mechanisms. Every organ has its own subclock synced to the master. When those clocks stay in alignment, your body functions the way it was designed to. When they fall out of sync even slightly, even temporarily, the damage is immediate and measurable. According to the National Institutes of Health, circadian disruption is now linked to elevated risks of obesity, type 2 diabetes, cardiovascular disease, depression, and several forms of cancer. The NIH describes it as a widespread and underrecognized health concern affecting hundreds of millions of people who have no idea it is happening to them. Here is the critical part that nobody explains. This disruption is not caused only by extreme lifestyle choices. It is caused by the ordinary, unchallenged habits you have built into your daily routine over years. Eating at irregular times, sitting for hours without movement, exposing yourself to artificial blue light at night, skipping real daylight in the morning. These are not dramatic violations. They feel completely normal. But they are steadily uncoupling your biological systems from the rhythm they depend on to survive. Think of it this way. Your body is an orchestra. Every organ, every hormone, every metabolic process is an instrument, and the circadian rhythm is the conductor. When the conductor loses the beat, some instruments slow down, some speed up, and some stop playing altogether. The music does not stop immediately, but it starts to fall apart quietly, progressively, and often invisibly until one day the performance collapses entirely. That collapse shows up as a diagnosis, as a condition that came out of nowhere, as a disease your doctor will treat with medication, while the original conductor, which is your lifestyle, keeps throwing the entire orchestra off beat. And here's the part most people miss entirely. By the time you feel the damage, it has already been building for years. Let us go deeper, because the consequences of these daily mistakes reach further into your biology than most people are ever told. A landmark study published in the journal Nature Reviews, Neuroscience, examining data from over 100,000 participants, found that lifestyle-driven circadian disruption causes measurable structural changes in the brain, including reduced volume in the prefrontal cortex, the region responsible for decision-making, emotional regulation, and impulse control. This is not abstract. This is your brain physically shrinking in response to how you are living. Let us break down the 3 primary systems that absorb the most damage. The first is your hormonal system. When your daily habits disrupt your circadian rhythm, cortisol, which is your primary stress hormone, stops following its natural arc. Normally, cortisol peaks in the morning to prepare your body for the day and drops by night to allow recovery. Research published in the Journal of Clinical Endocrinology and Metabolism found that chronic daily disruption, including irregular sleep timing and prolonged sedentary behavior, flattens the cortisol curve. A flattened cortisol curve is associated with chronic fatigue, impaired immune response, accelerated inflammatory aging, and significantly elevated risk of burnout. Your body is spending energy it does not have for a threat that never actually resolves. The second system is your gut. The enteric nervous system, often called the second brain, contains over 100 million neurons and is in constant two-way communication with your brain via the vagus nerve. A study published in Cell Host and Microbe found that even 3 days of irregular eating patterns is sufficient to alter the composition of your gut microbiome in ways that increase intestinal permeability, what researchers call leaky gut, allowing bacterial toxins into the bloodstream and triggering systemic low-grade inflammation. That inflammation silently attacks your cardiovascular system, your joints, and your brain, while you go about your day feeling a little off and assuming it is just stress. The third system is your cardiovascular infrastructure. The American Heart Association has documented that people who consistently sit for more than 8 hours a day, with no physical activity, have a risk of dying from cardiovascular disease equivalent to someone who smokes. The mechanism is direct. Prolonged sitting reduces the activity of an enzyme called lipoprotein lipase by up to 90%, which impairs the clearance of triglycerides from the blood, increases low-density lipoprotein cholesterol, and reduces nitric oxide production. The molecule your arteries depend on to stay elastic and open. The damage across these three systems does not announce itself loudly. It presents as tiredness, as stiffness, as a short fuse, as weight that will not move, as a gut that never feels quite right. These are not personality traits. They are not just aging. They are the cumulative biological output of choices that happen every single day. And here is the part that should concern you most. Every single one of these systems begins responding to damage within hours, not years of a harmful behavior. Let us talk about the specific habits that are making this worse every single day. Habits you probably think are completely harmless. The first habit is checking your phone within minutes of waking up. Most people think this is just a convenient way to start the day. What it actually does is catastrophic for your hormonal architecture. The first 60 minutes after waking are what sleep researchers call the cortisol awakening response window, a critical period in which your body naturally spikes cortisol to prime alertness and biological readiness for the day. When you immediately flood your visual cortex with notifications, news, and social stimulation, you trigger a secondary stress response that hijacks this natural process. Your amygdala, which is the brain's threat detection center, activates, driving cortisol far above its natural peak and locking your nervous system into a hypervigilant state. A study published in Computers and Human Behavior found that morning phone use within the first 30 minutes of waking is associated with significantly elevated anxiety scores throughout the entire day that follows. The damage begins before you have even spoken your first word of the morning. The second habit is eating your first meal later than 2 hours after waking. What most people think is that skipping breakfast or delaying it is either irrelevant or even beneficial. What it actually does is this. A study from the Obesity Journal following over 50,000 adults found that people who regularly consumed their largest meal later in the day had markedly higher rates of obesity, impaired glucose metabolism, and elevated inflammatory markers compared to those who ate earlier, even when total caloric intake was identical. The biological reason is direct. Insulin sensitivity is highest in the morning and drops progressively throughout the day. When you delay your first meal, you are eating into the window of lowest insulin efficiency, forcing your pancreas to work harder and producing larger post-meal blood sugar spikes. The damage accumulates daily, quietly driving the progression toward insulin resistance. The third habit is sitting for more than 50 consecutive minutes. You think this is just uncomfortable. What it actually does at the vascular level is switch off the muscle contractions in your legs, specifically your soleus muscle that are responsible for pumping blood back toward the heart. Without that pump, blood pools, venous pressure rises, and the endothelial cells lining your arteries begin producing less nitric oxide within just 20 to 30 minutes of uninterrupted sitting, as confirmed by research from the journal Medicine and Science in Sports and Exercise. Your cardiovascular risk measurably increases in under half an hour of sitting still. The fourth habit is using overhead lighting in the evening. Here is one almost nobody connects to their health. Standard indoor ceiling lights and screens emit blue wavelength light in the 400 to 490 nanometer range, the exact same wavelength that your retinal photoreceptors use to signal your brain that it is daytime. When you expose yourself to this light after sunset, your pineal gland suppresses melatonin production, sometimes by up to 50%, according to research published in the Journal of Clinical Endocrinology and Metabolism. Melatonin is not just a sleep hormone. It is one of the most potent antioxidants your body produces, responsible for cellular repair, DNA integrity maintenance, and immune regulation. Every evening spent under bright artificial light is an evening your body spends without its most powerful internal repair system running. The fifth habit is never reaching a state of full silence or stillness. What most people think is that constant stimulation through podcasts, music background, television, and social media is simply filling dead time. What it actually does is this. A landmark study published in the journal Brain Structure and Function found that 2 hours of complete silence per day prompted the growth of new cells in the hippocampus, which is the brain memory and learning center. Conversely, chronic noise stimulation keeps the sympathetic nervous system in a low-level arousal state, elevating baseline cortisol and preventing the parasympathetic recovery phase that your brain physically requires to consolidate memory, process emotion, and repair tissue. The damage accumulates, invisibly eroding cognitive reserve over years. But the damage does not stop at your habits. Your body has been sending you signals this whole time, and most people are completely ignoring them. Your body is not silent about this. It has been talking to you for a long time. The problem is nobody told you what to listen for. Warning sign 1. Waking up exhausted after a full night of sleep. You lie down for 7 or 8 hours and still open your eyes feeling like you never rested. This is not laziness. Biologically, this is a hallmark of suppressed slow-wave sleep. The deep restorative phase that your body cannot enter properly when cortisol remains elevated and melatonin is insufficient. It is your nervous system telling you it never fully powered down. Warning sign 2. An energy crash between 2 and 4 in the afternoon. A sharp drop in energy and focus in the mid-afternoon is widely dismissed as normal. It is not. It is a signal of blood sugar dysregulation. Your glucose is spiking and crashing in response to the meal timing and food quality patterns you have established, leaving your brain starved of its primary fuel precisely when you need it most. Warning sign 3. Difficulty feeling calm without doing something. If the idea of sitting quietly for 5 minutes with no phone, no screen, and no audio feels genuinely uncomfortable or almost impossible, your sympathetic nervous system is chronically overactivated. This is a measurable state with real physiological consequences, including elevated resting heart rate, impaired digestion, and reduced immune function. Warning sign 4. Bloating or digestive discomfort that has become your baseline. If you have simply accepted that you have a sensitive stomach, consider that a persistently disrupted gut microbiome driven by irregular meals, chronic stress, and poor sleep produces exactly these symptoms. What feels like a digestive quirk is your gut lining and microbiome communicating dysfunction. Warning sign 5. Mood that shifts significantly based on how much you have eaten or slept. Emotional volatility tied directly to biological state is a sign that your blood sugar regulation and cortisol rhythm are both compromised. A stable, well-regulated system maintains mood across small biological fluctuations. A disrupted one does not. Warning sign 6. Brain fog that arrives by mid-morning. Cognition that degrades within hours of waking suggests your prefrontal cortex is operating on insufficient recovery. This is not a personality trait. It is a biological measurement. If you recognized even 2 of those signs just now, keep watching, because what comes next is the part your doctor probably never told you. Now, here is the part of this conversation that almost never happens inside a doctor's office, and there are real structural reasons why. The average primary care appointment lasts between 7 and 15 minutes, according to data published in the British Medical Journal. In that window, a physician must review your symptoms, update records, order tests, if needed, write any prescriptions, and address your reason for visiting. There is no structural space in that encounter for a deep conversation about your morning phone habits, your meal timing, your evening light exposure, or your relationship with stillness. The system was not designed for that conversation. The second reason is the model itself. Modern medicine is by design, and by necessity, a system built around diagnosing and treating conditions that have already developed. It is enormously effective at that. But it was not designed to identify and interrupt the slow lifestyle-driven processes that produce those conditions over decades. By the time a blood panel shows a problem, the underlying disruption has often been running for years. The third reason is educational. A study published in The Lancet found that the majority of medical schools worldwide provide fewer than 20 hours of nutrition and lifestyle education across the entire medical degree. Physicians are trained extensively in pharmacology, pathology, and procedural medicine, and minimally in the daily behavioral patterns that drive the majority of the chronic conditions they treat. This is not a failing of individual doctors. It is a structural gap in the educational pipeline. And the fourth reason is economic. The healthcare system generates revenue primarily through treatment, not prevention. Pharmaceutical interventions for chronic conditions are among the highest value products in the global economy. This creates no structural incentive for the system to aggressively fund, teach, or prioritize the lifestyle changes that could reduce demand for those products. None of this is a conspiracy. It is simply the shape of a system built for a different purpose than the one you actually need it to serve. Understanding that shape is what allows you to take your health into your own hands, not by abandoning medicine, but by not waiting for medicine to hand you the information it was never designed to deliver. This is not about blame. This is about filling a gap that the system was never designed to fill for you. So now let us talk about what the research actually shows works. Not opinions, not trends, not influencer advice. Real evidence-based solutions. Solution 1. The 20-minute morning light protocol. Deliberate exposure to natural outdoor light within 30 minutes of waking for a minimum of 10 to 20 minutes. Outdoor light, even on an overcast day, delivers between 1,000 and 10,000 lux of light intensity to your retina. Indoor lighting delivers approximately 50 to 500. Signal travels to the suprachiasmatic nucleus and anchors your circadian clock for the entire 24-hour cycle that follows, regulating cortisol, timing melatonin release, body temperature rhythm, and metabolic function. Research from Stanford neuroscientist Dr. Andrew Huberman confirmed that morning light exposure is the single most powerful daily input for stabilizing the circadian system. Step outside without sunglasses within 30 minutes of waking. Walk, stand, or sit for 10 to 20 minutes. Do this every day, including cloudy days. Changes in mood and sleep quality are typically measurable within 4 to 7 days. Solution 2. A consistent eating window of 8 to 10 hours. Concentrate all your daily caloric intake within the same 8 to 10 hour window each day, beginning within 2 hours of waking. This practice, known as time-restricted eating, aligns food intake with peak insulin sensitivity and synchronizes the peripheral clocks of the liver, pancreas, and gut. A randomized controlled trial published in Cell Metabolism found that participants following a 10-hour eating window, without any changes to total calories or food quality, showed significant reductions in body weight, blood pressure, LDL cholesterol, and fasting blood glucose within 12 weeks. If you wake at 7, finish eating by 5 or 6 in the evening. No calorie counting required. Consistency of the window is more important than its exact hours. Solution 3. A 2-minute movement break every 45 minutes of sitting. Interrupting prolonged sitting with brief low-intensity movement every 40 to 50 minutes. Even 2 minutes of walking or standing restores lipoprotein lipase activity, reestablishes blood flow, and resets endothelial nitric oxide production. Research published in Diabetology found that regular 2-minute walking breaks throughout the day produced greater improvements in blood sugar and insulin response than a single 30-minute exercise session. Set a timer. Stand, walk to another room, or walk on the spot for 2 minutes every 45 minutes. The benefit is not in the intensity. It is in the interruption. Solution 4. Eliminating overhead lighting after sunset. Switch from ceiling lights and screens to dim, low-color temperature light sources after sunset. This stops blue wavelength suppression of melatonin, allowing your pineal gland to begin the repair cycle on schedule. A study in the Journal of Biological Rhythms found that this single habit change, implemented consistently for 1 week, restored melatonin levels and improved sleep architecture scores significantly. Use salt lamps, warm-toned floor lamps, or enable night mode on all screens after 8 in the evening. Keep overhead lights off. The cost is 0. The biological return is immediate. Solution 5. 10 minutes of complete silence daily. A daily 10-minute period with no audio input, no screens, and no tasks. Just stillness. This activates the parasympathetic nervous system, drops cortisol, allows the default mode network of the brain to consolidate experience and memory, and initiates the neurological recovery processes that chronic stimulation prevents. A study from the International Journal of Psychophysiology found that 10 minutes of daily silence reduced cortisol by measurable levels within 2 weeks of consistent practice. Sit somewhere quiet in the morning or midday. No meditation required, no technique required. Just remove all input and remain still. Begin with 5 minutes if 10 feels overwhelming. These are not hacks. These are not shortcuts. These are the things your biology actually responds to, and the research proves it. Here is the truth that ties everything you have just learned together. Your body was not built to withstand the modern daily default. It was built for morning light, for movement, for timed nourishment, for darkness at night, and for silence. Every structure we have built around modern living pulls against each one of the biological requirements, and your body pays the price in the currency of energy, clarity, resilience, and years. The 5 habits discussed in this video are not unusual. They are the default. Which means the damage described in this video is not unusual either. It is the baseline that most people have simply accepted as how life feels. But acceptance is not the same as inevitability. You now know something that most people around you will never take the time to learn. You know the mechanism, you know the warning signs. You know what the research actually recommends. And you know why the system around you was never designed to tell you any of it. Here is your question for the comments, and be honest. Of the 5 daily habits covered in this video, which one are you most guilty of right now? And have you ever connected it to the way you feel every single day? Next, we are going to talk about what chronic dehydration is actually doing to your brain, and what you find out will surprise you even more than today. Your biology is waiting for you to give it what it needs.